John L. Wilburn was born June 9, 1932, in Harrison County, Texas. He attended Park Elementary School and H.B. Pilmington High School. Let's give a listen to the thoughts of Mr. John L. Wilburn.
It goes lights, camera, action when I step into the limelight. Easily adapted to the high life. Dressed to impress like it's prom night. And when you live in top shelf, you know you gotta set the bar high. Had the same dreams since we was kids. Big trips, big cars, and even bigger cribs. Never thought that it would happen just the way it did. Fast forward that now, it's just the way we live. That's good food and drinks. My mood makes you think that this life's made for a king. The room starts to shake, so smooth if you blink, you might just miss the whole thing. It's just a different way to move in the high life.
Yeah, John likes to talk. He's a good guy. I tell you, when you listen to him, he's got a lot of history about Bethesda, about Marshall, about the school system, and he's a great educator. He really was, and he did a fine job while he was in the public school system, and when he got out, he did a super job on the city council.
Well, it's something we had to do. Our parents and relatives and things all were church-going people, and they always took us with us. Wherever they went, they took us. They wouldn't allow us to stay at home by ourselves and end up getting in trouble mingling with others. So they made sure we were in good hands by hands-on. Everywhere they went, we had to go, whether fishing or what. So they go to church, we knew there was going to be church every day. Every week. However, I would say this, I did attend my mother's church, which was Old Border, down in Jonesville. I went there when I didn't go here. Like I said, they didn't leave me at home by ourselves, and I think they met twice a month, church twice a month. So twice a month I would go there and I would cry because I didn't want to go there. I wanted to join Bethesda. This is where I attended Sunday school, BYPU, and everything else. But she was from old school. She wanted me to be baptized where she was baptized, the same pond. Remember the same church and all, and finally, when I did, then she told me I could go and join Bethesda. So that's what happened. But actually, to me, I've been a member all my life here.
Yes, sir.
Well, I applied for a job here when I graduated from Wiley College in '57, and actually I graduated in '56, but '57 is when I applied for a job, and I was denied because we had, during that time, swimming pool. We had integration was talked about then. And Dr. Macmillan initiated, got some fellows from Wiley, went down and integrated the swimming pool. And so the superintendent decided to ask the president to fire Dr. Macmillan, which he refused to do, so he retaliated by not hiring, got all the superintendents together in this area, and so they wouldn't hire any people from Wiley College. So as a result, I may not have gotten a job anyway, but definitely nobody was hired in the March school system that year, '57. Well, James and I really came up together. We were sisters and brothers children, and I know we had a cousin who claimed she was going to get him a job. He was working at Pope Rubber Company out on Highway 80 West. And I knew we had the same major. And as a result, when I got hired in Marshall, I no longer need that job in Arkansas. So I thought about James, and I went and asked him, did he want to teach? He said, yeah. And he said, yes, he wanted to teach. And so I told him what to do. I told him, I'm mailing this letter now. And when it would arrive, you go on down there and just tell the superintendent that you overheard me saying that I had a job in my hometown and you knew where I worked. So he came on down. So the superintendent hadn't gotten the letter, principal hadn't gotten the letter at the time, but he did get it, stayed around. That's how he got hired. Because he didn't have time. School had begun, so he didn't have time to search anymore.
I can remember John Mosley in the schools. As a teacher and as an administrator, we worked at a school, David Crockett School. And I learned a lot from Mr. Wilburn. He taught math across the hall for me. I think I was teaching 3rd grade. He probably was in the 5th grade. But I was to hear Mr. Wilburn when my kids would go to music or if they were out for an art class or something. I would be in my room working on lesson plans, and Mr. Wilburn, when he walks into his classroom, the kids knew exactly what to do. He would have them reciting their multiplication tables, and I mean one after the other, after other, after other. And I thought about that, and I thought, wow, so without Mr. Wilburn even knowing it, I was kind of stealing some of his ideas, on how to do my class. And so, I mean, the kids were he was an excellent teacher. Then he left our campus and became a principal. The same demeanor. Mr. Wilburn is truly, I believe, very gifted. He's straightforward. He will tell you like it is, and he's going to move on with it. And it's just been wonderful, and I know with this video, he'll probably say, I didn't know Betty would say that about me, but he is truly a good role model. He was my role model, and he never knew it.
I don't know if I've inspired him or not, but when we were in school, a lot of people accused me of demanding they make good grades, but I didn't do that. I demanded they pass. Not good grades, but pass. And I knew in order to pass, you're going to have to do studying. And studying, if you had the ability, you were going to get good grades. And they were just in the environment where all the friends, they were goal-oriented. They wanted to finish college, and my brothers and sisters, they were college grads. They were around people who had gone to college. So this is just something that's understood. This is what they were going to do. Well, NAACP President Charles Wilson during that time went to court, and she wanted that one man representative, everybody to be represented. At that time, we only had 2 people on the commission, 2 blacks, I should say. And I take that back, 1 black had 5-member commission. And she went to court, and she won out to court, and they extended to 7. So it had 3 predominant black districts. So in order to neutralize what the NAACP had accomplished, the people in the city tried to influence some people to run for that position that they knew they could control. But they refused. I wouldn't have known if they hadn't told me. And so I was at a frat meeting one night. I always pretty active, even during the sit-ins, and I told them, I said, I'm going to run for that position because they don't believe that a teacher has enough nerve to run, or a black administrator. I'm both of them. So during that time, I was part-time math teacher and part-time administrator at Sam Houston Road School. I did run, and I won. And even when I won, The secretary said it was illegal when I walked in to sign the papers and so forth, and she said, that's before I ran, rather, that I couldn't, since I was a teacher, I couldn't hold another position, governmental position. And I mentioned the fellow who had worked at Thiokar. He held two positions. He worked for the government, and he also was a city commissioner. So that didn't hold. So anyway, she saw that she couldn't convince. She even had a number for me to call. And I said, no, I'm not calling them. If it's illegal what I'm doing, Attorney General will send me a letter. And I said, you see all these people calling, all these cars passing by here, they checking on me. They don't believe I'm going to sign up. I got to sign up. And so she told me the March News Messenger. After so she couldn't convince me, she told me the March News Messenger was waiting on me to take pictures and so forth. So that's what it did. And like I said, and I ran and I won. And as a commissioner, we didn't have any, we had about 100 and some black hired out of 300 whites, and everybody had a laboring job, minimum wage job, so to speak, for the city. And I checked that, and I was constantly told the rest of the commissioners, matter of fact, that was my platform, to get more blacks in administrative positions, supervisory positions, and more blacks on the fire department, more black policemen. We also ran a tutorial program here at this church. And I had a fellow, Claude Williams Jr., Dr. Claude Williams Jr., who was teaching those classes, trying to improve the IQ and also the ability to pass tests. And this was done, and we were successful, and we did get more firemen. We got administrators hired, and that was, I would say, my greatest accomplishment. That never happened. When I got on, we had about 4 white supervisors. That's salaries combined with more than all the black hires. That's how poorly we were. And they were also afraid to apply for different positions when they worked for the city. The blacks were at this time. And so I would consider that as my compliment as a city commissioner, and later on as the mayor. And naturally I couldn't do it alone. I was able to convince the other, enough commissioners that this was needed so they could inform the city manager to do this hiring. And that was done.
Well, I know one of the reasons I used to go to a local place here in Marshall called Mr. Flanagan before he passed away, who did my barber. He was my barber. And at the same time, there was another gentleman in there, which is the deacon of here at Bethesda, was John Wilburn. And I used to enjoy going there because those two were characters. And they were very entertaining, even though they were serious about what they were discussing. And they wanted you to understand and know it was serious, even though they put it in a humorous way. And I used to like that about them. And like I said, I used to go, I would sit, and at the same time, Mr. Wilburn would tell you things about, he would even go into the church, he would even go into different things. If you were doing something that wasn't correct, he had a good way of mentioning it to you. And so was Mr. Flanagan, both of them. They were just kind of tit for tat off each other to make sure they got their point across. And I used to enjoy going there to get my hair cut. And even though some of my friends would wonder why would I go there, because I enjoyed Mr. Flanagan, I enjoyed Mr. Wilburn. I think they got free entertainment and you got a good haircut.
You can't beat those two companies.
Can't beat those two. Like I said, I just love Mr. Wilburn and I love Mr. Flanagan. And I think they're both two wonderful gentlemen. I'm glad I had them. They're part of my life anyway.
Volunteered for slow students because I had problems when I was starting school. I had an aunt who was a teacher. My dad was killed by lightning when I was 4 years old. And my aunt, my mother's sister, didn't have any children, took me in, and I immediately discovered that since she was a teacher, she wanted me to be smart. And I guess I was on the lazy side, so I go and take my whipping and she'd get my lesson. I'd rather take a whipping than to get my lesson. And that's what she did. And then somebody stole my little tablet when I was in the 4th grade. Never shall get my little blue composition tablet. I had everything. All my lessons were written by my aunt. And so then the teacher called on me. I didn't know anything. Naturally, I panicked too. And I didn't know a thing. The kids laughing at me and all, and that woke me up. So I had a good 1st grade teacher that had taught me earlier. So I had enough sense to go to her and ask her for help. And rather than taking PE, we got permission for me to stay in her class so I could get tutoring. And then on, I finished the elementary school with honors. And that's how big a change that was made from that day forward. I'm very appreciative of the members that I've met, and some have gone by the wayside, but some things that they left with me are still there that I cherish, and it helps me in my daily living by knowing and seeing what they had done and the advice they have given me and the way they lived. It's not, they said, a lived sermon is much better than a preached sermon. And through those people, I saw a lot of living going on. Matter of fact, they, like I said, were very helpful, and the key was not coming up, it just understood you get an education. So that's how you got out of poverty. We were not integrated then. We didn't have all these modern things. We walked a long way to school. We walked a mile to school or better. The only people who had buses during that time were the people who lived in the rural. City folks, I don't care how you live, 3-4 miles, Gresham District, Scotts District, wherever you live, you walk to school. Rain, shine, sleet, snow. And they prepared us for all of the downfall that you have by saying, remember, God is with you. You can't fail, and God's with you. So they give you strength. Even when you get down, you think about that. When you want to give up, you think about that. You can't fail. How can I fail? He's not a loser, regardless of how it is. And I try to spread that question you asked me a long time ago. I tried to spread that to my children and their friends as they came around. I was blessed that I had a big backyard, and all of my children friends came there to play, so I could keep a handle on them, play in the back playing. I also coached Little League and all that too, so that stayed me in contact with my children peers as well as their parents. So I had it both ways. That way, plus I was a teacher, a church-going person and all, and how can you lose? So all that was contributed to my success, I suppose.
Everybody needs a friend. I'll be here for you. Whatever the time, always make it through. Every one of us has days like